I'm going to try and be a bit careful with my vocabulary here because I'm not used to this platform and I don't know how sensitive it is, because Twitter obviously is the home of free speech since Elon Musk bought it, and I must say it is a lot easier on there, and he's trying his best to get rid of all these bot accounts. So people are always asking me why I didn't join in the rollout. I didn't make a conscious decision not to. I was like everybody else. I was like stunned that it was going on. And lockdown threw me. I thought, oh my God, is it happening to us after seeing China? I couldn't believe it. So for me, I didn't intend to be anti anything or stand against things. I just do what I've always done, which is my own risk assessment. I've always done it, whether it's, as a kid, when they were all smoking in toilets at school. Come on, have a fag, June, you're hard, you're soft, have a fag. I thought, no, I don't want a bloody fag. I have to watch my mum and dad coughing and spluttering every morning. We never opened any windows till May in our house. Fag, we must have stunk of bloody nicotine going to school. Right, our teachers, they all smoked in school, I don't know about you, they were all there with fag on desk. One had a pipe, you couldn't see him. He used to smoke away on this pipe like Sherlock Holmes. Then he talked you and you think, where's that voice coming from behind all the smoke? So no, I've never been easily led. And my lifestyle, I live with Dave and the dogs. It's an isolated house. I don't go out much because most people annoy me. And I started going a bit like that a few years ago, after I was always the one opening my door and people coming to my house for Sunday dinner and my house sleeping over. And I thought, hang on a minute, we're all invitations back. Oh, you do it so well, June. Yeah, well, all right, maybe I want a break from changing bloody beds and going out shopping. Dave does it now. Result, he said I were crap at it. Oh, there you go, son. Another job you've got, shopping. Sorry about that, but this is a normal household and my husband keeps coming in and out. He's washing his golf trolley at Door Creek. It sounds like I'm broadcasting from Adam's family. So for me, I didn't join in, not because of any massive stand I was making. I didn't go out a lot, didn't go to crowds, football matches, shopping. Oh, he's forgot water. God. He's gone. It wasn't a massive stand for either of us. We just took a decision and I said, oh, we're having this vaccine or what? And he went, well, wait, that's what Dave said. And Dave did the shopping, as I say, got himself a job there. Oh, you don't do it right. You've paid too much for Actimel. Have I? He's a much better shopper than me. So that's another job off my hands. So that was a plus point anyway through lockdown. And I've never had to pick a shopping bag up since, really, unless it's out of choice. So I didn't make a stand. I just didn't join in. I wasn't planning to travel anywhere. I wasn't, I can understand why people, they were bribed, weren't they? They were told, by our government, especially the boomers, the older ones, that they knew would take notice because they come from that generation that remembered, basically rationing from the war. If you were born in the 50s, you'd remember rationing. It only stopped when I was born in 1957. Anyway, so we didn't do anything in particular, but I started thinking, hang on a minute, they normally test a drug for 10 years and this, wow, we've got one, it's ready. Is it? But before that, I started looking at stuff like all them nurses dancing. It wasn't the dancing, it was quite entertaining. It was, how have you got time to choreograph all that? How have you got time to choreograph? You run off your feet. Bodies should be piling up in the street and they weren't. So, and then that night when we had to bang our pans, well, we didn't bang our pans, there were no bloody neighbours anyway. And I thought, hang on, this is like communism. This is like when you see them all waving at Kim Jong-un. They're all there starving, they've no proper food in North Korea, but oh, look, there's our leader, fat as... Do you know he eats pot noodle? I'm telling you, he has pot noodle shipped in, he loves it. A journalist told me. Anyway, going back to being a renegade, I'm not. I'm just not a risk taker. That's the difference. I don't take risks. That's why I didn't smoke at school. And I watched what were going on, and then with the ambulances lined up and all the nurses and the paramedics, and I thought, shouldn't they be out picking up bodies up and people flaying about, ill? And how come hospitals didn't they were overwhelmed. They were shut down. That's different. If you're only having 2 or 3 wards open, the rest of them are shut, that's not overwhelmed. And nurses could come and go off sick with the result of a test that they have to poke someone up back of your nose and nearly puncture your brain site to find out if you're ill. You have to stand 6 feet away from someone in case you catch it. Oh no, hang on, the brain cells started going round. Like, hang on a minute, they stand up in a pub, put a mask on, sit down, you can take it off. Oh, that's all right. Why don't we just go around our lives on all fours? We don't have to stand up then. You can just keep our masks off, going about like commandos, off to Chippy. It was just madness to me. And then, of course, because of the contacts I've built up, and then these doctors, you've got to remember, a lot of these doctors, like Asim Malhotra and Dr. Cartland and Dr. Tina, they're not anti anything. They're vaccinated. They took it. Some of them are ill. That's how they know. But as usual, the institutionalised thinkers that work in the NHS particularly, a directive comes through on a sheet of paper or an email, you're having that done, right, we're having that done. And they do it. That's it. They don't question it. And a lot of them have lived to regret it. But if they spoke out, they got cancelled. That was another thing. As soon as I knew with Brexit, the way they stifled the media and the news and they twisted it, I thought if they can do it over Brexit, they can do it over anything. So that's what made me sort of sit back. The rules didn't make sense. The people telling me to do it didn't make sense. And the next time I listen to a former banker, Sajid Javid, telling me to take health measures is the time. I mean, you wouldn't. In real life, if a banker told you how to behave medically, would you listen to him? Because that's what Javid is, he's a banker. And then when he come out in that video and he said, well, we know the first 2 don't work. It's the 3rd one that does. That doesn't even make sense if you're supposed to be fighting variants, does it? And we're supposed to believe this. And then all of a sudden, boom, another one not in the job. And Hancock, who could trust him? I can't believe people watched him at Jungle. He said, I just wouldn't support it, no matter how much I like the show. Hancock turned round. How narcissistic can you be when people had weddings cancelled? Their wedding cancelled because they lived in separate counties. And, hang on, Jeff's going to kick off. Oh no, maybe not. He had people cancelling their weddings because they lived in different counties over these borders that they put up. And some of, great expense, family days ruined, christenings, funerals with 7 and 8 people sat social distancing. And he had the audacity to turn around, groping Gina's bloody backside, sticking his tongue down her throat on government premises after installing her as a government advisor. And then turn round to the crowd and say, well, I'm in love. Oh, these people getting married, were they not in love? So there's all this unfolding all the time. It's just not exactly building up trust, is it? It certainly didn't for me. So, no, that's why I didn't join in, because I thought, hang on a minute, you're only going to get one chance. And then you realise that nurses have to be trained to do injections, because they can be subcutaneous under the skin, like for diabetics, or into a muscle, like for a vaccine, or into the bloodstream, like for addicts, etc. And all of a sudden we've got laymen, scaffolders and counsellors banging it in your arm. How many had poor vaccine sites? How do we know? Because it's all kept away from us. How come the fact that Kansas, the state of Kansas, is currently taking legal action against Pfizer for overselling the product, for cushioning drawbacks and side effects? How come we don't get told that by the news? That's actually happening. It was in Reuters. It's a Reuters article. The state of Kansas is suing Pfizer. Other people are suing Pfizer because, when you get an inquiry, the EU COVID inquiry uncovered the fact that the actual drugs were never tested for transmission, and yet you had people on the telly, Piers Morgan, Edwina Currie, Esther Ranson, saying people ought not to they ought not to ask for medical treatment if they've not joined in the rollout. You've got people like that saying that when they didn't even know that it'd been tested. They were so ill-informed and yet pushed you, bullied you, shamed you. Well, you weren't bloody shaming me, because I wouldn't have listened to Edwina Currie anyway. She's still got egg on her face from her last bollocks that she dropped. Do you remember she nearly crippled farming years ago, decades ago? And Esther Ranson, she's like the leader of Age Concern or whatever it's rebranded as, telling old people not to seek treatment. She's got one of these fast-acting cancers now, hasn't she? How odd. So I didn't join in just for my own ends because I didn't want to take the risk. I thought I've a pretty robust immune system. I'm 66, I'm not on any medication, and I didn't want to take the risk. But I would never dream of telling you not to do it, or never dream of telling you to do it. But I think you should have had the information to make better decisions, and most people base their decision making on false information supplied by the media and hidden by big tech. The censorship on Facebook was horrendous, and I believe that they are culpable in everything that's gone on that's bad. And it's still going on. It's still not getting reported properly, although they have eased up. So that's why I didn't join in. And I think everyone should make their own decision. And I do believe the last bastion on this earth has got to be inside your own body. And when I watched Stefan Ulrich from Bayer on an international stage for a health meeting in Brussels, was it Brussels? No, it might have been Munich. But I've got the video on Twitter. And he stood up, nice enough fella. And he said, can you imagine, this is verbatim, I've said it before, can you imagine 2 years ago if we would have asked people to take a brand new gene therapy into their bodies, we'd have had a 95% rejection rate. Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. And you'd have had no profit. And you'd have had no uptake. Johnson & Johnson were nearly bankrupt after a lawsuit for their talcum powder containing aluminium. People were using the talcum powder for 10 years, they knew. 10 years. The court found them guilty in a case where one woman who contracted breast cancer through the talcum powder got a claim settled of $2 billion. And the judge said he'd done it to teach them a lesson. They were going down the pan, were Johnson & Johnson, until the rollout. And the rollout made them all rich. So then the other thing for me, how I equated it is, right, there's all these silly rules and nurses with time to rehearse dancing and ambulances lined up with flashing lights to please us, and we're all clapping like seals. Oh yeah, national health. And I'm thinking, I'm not saying that, some departments and people on those wards didn't do their best. It's not about the nurses and the doctors, it's about the management. It's about the duplicity and hiding the truth and exaggerating things to make people comply. And when you've got a Tory government employing communist advisors like Susan Mishi, she's communist royalty, she is. When you've got that as a backdrop to what's going on, you've got to question everything. So that's where I sit with where we are today. It's not because I made a big stand, it's not because I'm an activist. I just thought, whoa, slow down there, boy. I felt like that fella on Wagon Train, what was he called? Slow the horses down here, we're going off the cliff. That's why. So it's no great stand that I made, and I'm not prepared to take credit for it. I just looked to my own ends and then tried to share information as I watched my friends and family queue up like it were a bread strike. Very sad to see. And I'm really so disappointed in our own government and Parliament. It's not just the government, because nobody stood up to them, did they? They pressured people in it. And that's why in this election, it's so important to get some fresh faces on those backbenches, to challenge, to make sure they're coming from a party or an individual that cannot be whipped into shape, cannot be whipped. And this new wave that hopefully we get, like the Europeans are trying to achieve, of a bigger say in what goes on in our lives, like direct democracy. Why can't we put big stuff out to the vote of the people? Referendums don't need to be costly. Switzerland use them all the time. The big stuff is handed back to the people. And that's how it should be. It should be like that with HS2. It should be like that with any changes to the NHS. 5,000 beds gone during lockdown. If you care about us so much, why are you taking beds off us when we're struggling? We're going to have people needing them. Doesn't make sense, does it? So you add it all up and you take a step back. And that's why with what's going on now with Nigel Farage. He'll get the publicity. The Reform Party, they're not the be-all and end-all. They're not well organised, which is probably why Tories aren't just jumping ship. Although I have to say I don't think the Tories are any better at being organised. We've just got more money and a longer standing to fall back on. But we have to save ourselves. And what we've got right now is so worth saving. We've got each other. We've got our families. We've got our friends. We've got houses and gardens and things to hang on to before they try and take it all off us. And I'll cover that in other issues. This was just about people asking why I didn't join in the rollout. I rest my case.